when who you were before isn't who you are anymore. It's time for a pivot. When the trajectory of your life or of your business no longer excites you or turns you on, it's time for a pivot. When what worked before no longer works, it's time for a pivot. When you're trying to survive but you really want to thrive, it's time for a pivot. Y'all, it's time for a pivot. Pivot. Y'all, I'm back from a 3-month hiatus, and I want to talk to you about navigating a pivot, because so many of us are in a huge pivot right now. I have been in one and am genuinely still navigating it, and I usually don't talk about things until after they're complete, but we got to be in this together. So what I'm going to bring today is insight and information about how to navigate a pivot, the identity shifts that come with a pivot, and how to navigate major life transitions. I mean, why am I even credible to speak on this topic at all? Well, because I've been through a lot of pivots. Somebody once told me, you have redefined yourself and rebranded yourself so many times, and it's true. But I never really set out to do that. I just live an intuitively guided life. And I let old aspects of myself die, and I let new aspects of myself be born. And that's how I continue to evolve. That's how I went from studying fashion and French to having a jewelry line, while also being in sales for a total of 16 years, for being a financial advisor for 5 years, to then being a coach to executives, and leaving corporate completely to have a spiritual business, be a spiritual teacher, teach high-level concepts in a very grounded way that help other people go through their evolution. And it's not like I'm a new person every time. I'm an evolved version of myself every single time. I still love fashion and aesthetics. You can see that in my branding. I still honestly think I'll have a product line one day, but that's not on the radar right this second. I still use all of my sales skills in my business today. It's not that one leaves and something else comes in. It's that it all builds upon each other, and at the same time, there are times where we need to let things go. When I left for a 1-month hiatus that turned into 3, I was fully ready to throw away my online business. Completely. Don't care that I've spent however many years building it. Don't care that I have evergreen courses that can continue to be sold. Don't care, don't want it. It's gotta go. Luckily, I have a team who could help me stay grounded and say, okay, you need to step away from the online business, but let us continue to help nurture that. And I'm very glad that we've done that. So I'll throw in some personal examples about my current pivot and my previous pivots, but ultimately, I want to give you what I've learned about how to navigate major life freaking change. Okay, so first of all, I see a pivot as having 4 main components. And the first component is a perspective shift. Think about it. If I'm facing in this direction and my life is heading in this direction, if I'm gonna pivot, I'm gonna turn the wheel. Well, when I turn the wheel, even whether it's 1 degree or 180 degrees, I'm shifting, and I see a different perspective. Now, for me right now, in the pivot that I'm in, is from focusing most of my attention on one-on-one and really intimate, high-level mentorship with conscious companies, executives, and entrepreneurs, to now pivot to still do that, but focus more on getting my message to the masses. So there's a perspective shift kind of from one-to-one or one-to-intimate to one-to-many. Now that doesn't mean my entire body of work changes, but in this pivot, my perspective has to change a little bit, because my exact same message could be said one way to this specific person and might need to be said a slightly different way to reach a much broader audience. Once you go through the perspective shift, whether that's, okay, I am an entrepreneur and I have my own company and I've really been focused in this direction, but now I see, oh, well, I want to bring a different product to market. So that might be a perspective shift. Or I want to bring my product or service to market in a completely different way. There's a perspective shift. Or in my relationship, we've been doing things this way, but that doesn't feel fulfilling anymore, and I'm really desiring something else. You turn to look at things in a different way, and there's a perspective shift. So whether this is in your own life, your personal or intimate life, your relationships, your business, it doesn't matter. When we look at a pivot, there is some kind of perspective shift. Now, after the perspective shift, there's some kind of intention shift. And maybe those go hand in hand. Maybe you shift your perspective because you have a new intention, you have a new desire, or you have a new need. When you have a new need, desire, or intention, you're gonna look at things in a slightly different way. If my love life was really fulfilling in this way for a while and now it just feels stale and dry, well, you might need something else, that a need that wasn't being fulfilled before. Maybe you were just scratching the surface of your intimate life and now you're like, well, it's not really cutting it. I have a deep, deep desire for a lot more sexually or intimately that I didn't even know it within myself, or that I didn't even allow myself to acknowledge because it made me uncomfortable and I was afraid of how it would be received. Or maybe it's in your messaging in the world. For example, me, I am looking at shifting my messaging, not changing my messaging. There's a difference, because what I'm here to bring and what I'm here to do is what it is. But whereas after leaving corporate, my main intention with sharing my message was liberation, was freedom, was no filter. Because I had broken out of the cage of the corporate world. I had freed myself from working for someone else, for operating within other people's rules and expectations. So my intention at that time with sharing my message was freedom, liberation, no filter, liberation. Well, now that I'm looking to bring my message to a much broader audience, I'm shifting the way that I deliver the message because the intention is different. The intention is no longer for me to be freely expressed and for me to be liberated in my truth and in my message. Now my intention is for my message to be received by as many people as possible. That doesn't mean I dilute myself. And that doesn't mean I shift what I say, but I might use different language to land with a different audience. I might use different vocabulary or different examples and stories that I tell because a broader audience will be able to relate to them. So as our intention shifts, our identity shifts a little bit. When I was in corporate, my main public identity was very polished. It was very well spoken. It was buttoned up. but still edgy because you can't hide it, and I just am, and it just was. But the way that I presented to the world was through the lens of, if HR saw this, would it be okay? If HR saw this, would my license be revoked? There was one time, sidebar story, there was one time that somebody in HR found my energy healing website, and I completely forgot to notify them that my outside business had shifted from a jewelry line to also include energy healing, and that needs to be on the books and everyone needs to know, and I am not good at following other people's rules, so like it literally didn't cross my mind. And they called me into their office. I had no idea why, and on their big screen was my website, and I was like, oh my God. They did not take it seriously. They were low-key really hardcore judging me and asked me a lot of questions. Anyways, at that time, my identity, public facing, was as buttoned up as possible. When I left corporate and I was a solo entrepreneur and building my own company that grew really, really quickly, again, it was more about liberation and freedom. And so the way that I presented to the world, my perceived identity was free, liberated, raw. If I had an idea, most of my ideas came either early in the morning or late at night when I was still in bed. And rather than get up, get dressed, put on makeup, do my hair, and then pull out a camera, I just channeled and shared live in the moment as it was coming through. So you can look back at a lot of my content, and a lot of it, I'm in bed under the covers, speaking to the camera, no makeup, totally unfiltered. And that really worked for me at the time. And now there's a bit of a weaving to find a middle ground. Because while the polished, more filtered me needed to present in the box, and then my totally raw, free self needed to be expressed to swing that pendulum in the other direction, now it's, okay, my pendulum has swung, and now I know the difference between communicating in order to be expressed and communicating in order to be heard. Notice this in relationships, especially when there's tension, especially if you're in some kind of fight or argument. Notice the way that you communicate when your intention or desire is to be expressed. It's more raw, it's more unfiltered, probably doesn't take the other person's feelings into account as much. It might be harsher. You might actually say some things that you regret because you just want to be expressed. And then think of the way that you communicate when your intention is to be heard and to be received. We take the other person into account more. We consider how the person will feel receiving our message rather than just how I'm going to feel getting it out. It's more mutual. It's more reciprocal. And it tends to land better. And there tends to be resolution. And whether it's an argument or a fight or sharing a message that might be on the leading edge, it might be coming from a thought leadership type of place where it's outside of what people have thought before. The best way to do that is to, yes, be expressed and be authentic in your expression, while also taking into account how people will be able to receive it and hear it and integrate it. So with the identity shift, that's really a natural byproduct of your perspective shift and your need, desire, or intention shift. So, for example, over the past couple of months, I have become a cat mom. I have been single and solo for I think 5 years now. I answer to myself. I am my own authority, and as exhausting as that can be, running a business, managing a team, helping my clients living my own personal life, maintaining my own household, all of that solo is a lot. And I now have a new identity. I'm a mom. My kitty baby has made me a mama. And she's very much preparing me for motherhood. My spirit daughter has been in my life for probably 5 years now. Whoa, I think spirit daughter came in when I was single after my last long-term relationship, which was like 5 years ago. I just realized that right now. And she leads my life. She has very strong plans. She is in charge. And she kind of let me know that this cat was coming in. I had a feeling, and she's very much preparing me for motherhood. They share a very specific frequency. Like, there's characteristics of Priestess, which is my kitty baby. Priestess cat has very specific characteristics that are very similar to my spirit daughter in the way that she comes through for me, in the way that she engages with me. And it's very funny, and it's a lot. She's a handful. But I have a new identity. Now, that's not something that I looked for. That's not a pivot that I chose. It's a pivot that came into my life. But once it came in, I chose it. I didn't have to say yes. I didn't have to keep her after she adopted me. She came to me psychically first. I knew it was coming. Literal angels, aliens, and a few of my best friends all conspired to make this happen. And now I can't imagine my life without her, even though she's turned it completely upside down. I don't know what sleeping in is anymore, because she wakes me up at the crack of dawn every single day. But I love her, and I'm a mom now. I'm a mom. And my days are different because they revolve around training a cat. Yes, that's right, I'm training a cat. Like toilet training, outside walking without a leash training. We go on hikes in our backyard trail together. Anyways, I'm a mom, and it's a whole new identity. When I left corporate to be a full-time entrepreneur, that was a new identity. I'm an entrepreneur now. I answer to myself now. I am the boss. There's no one else to lean on for decisions. It's all on me. There's a new identity. If you're exiting a relationship or becoming a single mom, or ending a marriage that's lasted for a long time, there's a new identity. And that's where the ego comes in. That's actually one of the pieces that we have the most resistance around, because the ego feels safe and comfortable knowing what's going on. The ego likes to put things in boxes with labels and names that we understand. So when we've operated under a certain identity for a long time, we feel really safe in that identity, even if we don't want to be in it anymore. There's a sense of safety in what is known, so doing something new is really tough because it's unknown. Therefore, we don't feel safe in it. So the lesson here is to ground your sense of safety in something more permanent and less transient. Can you ground your sense of safety in your breath? Can you ground your sense of safety in knowing and choosing to believe that you are always provided for, even if you don't know how? Can you ground your sense of safety in, I trust myself, I trust the universe, I trust God or my angels or whatever higher power, infinite intelligence that resonates with you? Can you ground your sense of safety in the knowing that you are part of that? That the same infinite intelligence that makes nature grow and water fall from the sky and food grow from the earth and your body breathe and your body know what to do, can this infinite intelligence that you are a part of, can that be your sense of safety? It's zooming out to have a much broader identity. And that so you can have a sense of safety in a zoomed out, broader identity. So that whatever identities you choose to step forward with in the world, that's just a form of your own expression. That's just the hat you're choosing to put on for that day or that season or for that life. And you don't have to have one identity or one hat. You can flip them on and off all the time. I'm in creative mode sometimes, and then I'm in boss mode sometimes, and then I'm in mom, kitty mama mode sometimes. I'm in friend mode. There's different identities, and we can have a lot of them, but a big part of a pivot is creating safety, developing and embodying a new identity. All right, that was the third one. The fourth step or component of a pivot is action. There's an action shift. You file for divorce. You have the baby. You get married. You launch the company. You fire your team. You invest in a mentor. You invest your money in a different asset. You do something different. But the thing is, all of these things are happening at the same time. And so it can feel chaotic. It can feel ungrounded. And so there's this fine line to walk between letting yourself navigate the chaos without really knowing how it will all come together, how it will all land, and just choosing. Just choosing. You have to choose to make the change. Usually, people don't take the action of the pivot until they've had the perspective shift and they're like, oh, my needs, my desires, my intentions are different. Okay, I'm seeing things differently. Well, shoot, I'm not really comfortable here anymore, but I'm certainly not comfortable doing something else. And then they realize, oh my gosh, like who I was isn't who I am anymore. Who I want to be isn't who I am right now. There's an identity that is kind of calling me forward, or there's an identity that's already died, and I don't really know who I am, but I know something needs to change. There's a lot of internal shifting and chaos that's happening. And it's usually not until people choose. You have to just choose. And say, all right, it will figure itself out. You've created enough safety in your body. You know how to regulate your nervous system enough to navigate the fear of the unknown and choose. And y'all, we are at a pivot point globally right now. A global tipping point where the way that we've done things in the past do not work anymore. The system is broken. The financial system is a glorified monopoly game, and it's rigged by the people who created it. When I was studying for my financial exams, the only way that I could remember the information and regurgitate it in order to pass the Series 7 to become a financial advisor was to tell myself that this is a game and I'm just learning the rules of the game. Because it didn't make sense. In learning the ins and outs of the financial system, I just remember thinking, oh my God, this isn't even real. Like, this isn't even real. And it really caught me up. I was like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I can take this test. And I was an honor roll student. And I had to just come to terms with the fact that this is a game, a very complicated game that not many people understand because it is very complex by design. And I'm just learning the rules of the game. And oh yeah, the system is rigged by the people who created it so that all the money fuels up to them and they have control. I digress. That system is broken and no longer works. Healthcare system profits off of illness. That is a broken system. It no longer works. The media is full of propaganda and a narrative that is told by the people who own the world. And they tell us what they want us to believe in order to maintain control and keep making money off of us. The system is broken. The American dream. Go to school, go to college, get a degree, get a job, be there forever, retire, get married, have kids, white picket fence. Yo, so many people do that. They've been my private clients. They have been successful, high power people, lots of executives and entrepreneurs who have checked the boxes of success and they are not fulfilled. And they see, oh my God, the American dream is an illusion. I have millions of dollars, I have this great career or company, I have kids, and like, what is this? The system is broken. So yeah, we're at a global pivot point, and we've got to globally pivot in order to do something different. If you look at history, we can see that a lot of the things that happened before prior civilizations fell have happened or are happening in our civilization right now. That's just history. So the interesting thing is, when I was kind of on a spirit-led pilgrimage in Greece a few years ago, I didn't know it at the time, but I channeled a lot. It's taken a couple of years for me to really integrate it and decode it and get it down on paper. And what I now know is what I was channeling was the way that that civilization thrived in the last golden age. Their cultural values, their system of wealth, and their energetic infrastructure. And it was all of this that made the culture thrive. Everyone lived in harmony. The people, the land, every different aspect of society worked together in harmony. And what I've learned from a combination of that channeled wisdom, along with 16 years in corporate sales, 5 years as a financial advisor, coaching executives and entrepreneurs, and leading a soul-led business, having countless case studies with my private clients, I have found that there is an internal source of power. And the reason we're at a global tipping point is because our collective society, the people in our culture, are disconnected from this source of power. And that's part of the game. That's part of the game. Because if we're disconnected from our internal source of power, then we plug into external sources of power. And that's where we outsource other people's opinions in order to make a decision. We turn to the beauty industry to buy products to feel good about ourselves and have some semblance of self-esteem or self-worth. We seek validation. We people please. We rely on our boss for our paycheck or on our employees for the health of our company. There's all these different ways that we outsource our power to things external. And that's how our whole society is built. And that's why we're at a global tipping point, and the solution lies in unplugging from the external sources of power, where we seek things outside of ourselves, And we harness that internal power within. And you know who this is. You know, it is so easy to tell when someone has harnessed this invisible power. They walk into a room and you feel it. They have a presence that precedes them. Their whisper is louder than someone else's scream. Things just seem to work well for them. It's like the world bends to their will, to their desires. People love to support them. They want something, it happens. These are the people that have really tapped into and harnessed their invisible power, this internal power source. And so that's the tipping point right now, is are we going to tap into that within ourselves so that we can sovereignly create a new life, a new company culture, a new world, a new economy, that we can create something new. Because the old world doesn't have to die. The old paradigm does not have to die for a new paradigm to be born. We can choose to stick with the current paradigm, the matrix, the outsourcing your power, the old ways of doing things that no longer work, whether that's in your relationship, your business, or your own personal life. We can keep doing what no longer works and just watch it blow up in our face. Or we can pivot, change our perspective, realize that we have evolved needs, desires, and intentions, make a choice to do something different, and that pivot point, what it comes down to, is harnessing this invisible power. So I am going to be doing a free 2-day masterclass called Invisible Power. As of the day of recording this, we actually launched it and announced it today, and we had, I think we're averaging like a sign up a minute. We had like 20 in the first 20 minutes, I think 50 or 60 in the first hour. I'm really excited about it. I think people are really excited about it because this is what we need to navigate the pivot. This is what we need to take action in the new direction. So we'll link all the details below. Check it out. It's free. There will be a replay available for a limited time. I highly recommend you watch it. There's going to be a lot of value, and that kind of ties into another aspect of my own pivot. What? All right, so here's some lessons that I've learned in my own several pivots, and especially the one that I'm in right now. One, when life changes, it doesn't go back. It just doesn't. Once you give birth to the baby, you're a mom, and you don't go back. Once you get married, you are no longer single. You don't go back. Once you start a business, you're in it. You're responsible for it. You have a company now. It doesn't go back. Now, you might make another choice down the road. You might sell the company. You might say, never mind. You might get a divorce. Your kids grow up and go off to college. Things evolve and change, but it doesn't go back. I was talking to a family member recently about meeting her husband, and she's single. And she was like, yeah, I think I'm kind of nervous, about getting to watch what I want on TV. And like, I come and go as I please. I love my time to myself. And I was like, girl, I feel you. I've been on my own for a while now. And what I've learned becoming a cat mom, because people say cats are easy, they've never had an indoor cat, at least not mine. I don't know. Maybe they've also never tried to toilet trade her. It doesn't matter. It's an ordeal. But what I've learned is it doesn't go back. I can't sleep in anymore. I have to think about a bedtime, whereas I love to get in a late night creative zone, a channeling space, and I can still do that, but I'm still gonna be woken up at the crack of dawn. It doesn't go back. And a lot of us resist the pivot and resist the change because we don't want to let go of what we currently know. We don't want to let go of certain things in our life that we really enjoy. But if we don't let it go and we don't clear it out, we can't receive what's next. So there's a death and a birth happening at the same time, and so many people are so freaking terrified of death that you are like putting all of this resistance on the birth. So that's one lesson. When something changes, it doesn't go back. So let yourself grieve the old, honor it, let it die, and that's just a part of life. At the end of 2020, in my hibernation, I was processing a lot around fame, around being seen in a really big way, and being on stage. Now, again, I've seen this for years, but I felt like I was truly calibrating to it. And it was the same vision over and over and over again. Like I'm backstage and the curtains are about to part and I'm about to walk on and I can feel the audience. I can feel the thousands of people. I can feel the immense energy and all of their attention directed at me right before I step out. And I had a pretty big nervous system response to it. I had to breathe through it and find comfort there, find safety in my nervous system and regulate myself to be able to step out on stage. And at the same time as processing that, it was, okay, well, what do I want that to mean for me? What boundaries do I need in order to feel safe stepping out in front of a lot of people? What boundaries do I need to feel free sharing my message? What needs to shift within me so that I still have my sovereignty, I'm still tuned into my own power, and I can share and transmit and speak to the world at large while still being true to myself, while keeping what's private to me private. And one thing that I've noticed, and I've talked to a lot of friends, or some friends about this who have parallel but different paths and soul missions right now, is that the idea of celebrity is changing. And we've already seen it change. Celebrity at one point was movie stars, and that's still true. And there's paparazzi, and they don't have privacy, and they're judged, and they're shamed, and they're in the tabloids, and everyone's looking for a reason to talk about them and make a bunch of money because everyone wants to know what's going on with this celebrity person. And I've never wanted that. I've never wanted that. I want nothing to do with that. I love my privacy. I love my sovereignty. I want my business to be my business, even though I share a decent amount of my business to paint a picture and tell stories. But that's kind of the old school celebrity, and that's a different frequency. It's a specific frequency, and it has a lot of density, a lot of distortion. It's yuck to me. And then that kind of shifted to influencers, where with the evolution of technology, we've all been able to create our own platform. And it's open sourced. We can do whatever we want. We can attract whatever audience is attracted to us, and we don't have to go through an agent or a production company. We can share our message, our content, our work in the world from a sovereign place through the internet. And so influencers was kind of the next wave of celebrity, where you're Instagram famous or YouTube famous or TikTok famous. And that's where the influence has been in the world. Now, the next wave of celebrity, and it'll probably have a different title, but we're just seeing the evolution of the cultural role model. The next iteration of the cultural role model is not people who have gained some kind of success. You're a millionaire, you're a billionaire, you fly private, so you are this mogul. That's the word, mogul. It's like there's the movie star, there's Hollywood, there's the business, the moguls. It's wealth related. Now there's the influencers. Now some influencers are sharing a lot of value in the world. Others are maybe not so much, but it's entertainment, and you have a big following and it works. Now the next iteration of that, as I see it, is people who are living in alignment with a new world. Those who are tapped into their invisible power. Those who live in their sovereignty. Those who see things differently than the world has taught us to see things. Those who have broken out of the molds of the matrix, of the old paradigm, of the ways of living and doing business and raising a family and all of those ways that don't work anymore. The next iteration of cultural role model is people who've figured it out. People who are living in this new way. People who can be way showers just by the way that they live their life. And for some people, this will just be their lifestyle. For other people, this will be teaching it and sharing messages and being a thought leader. And really being on the leading edge of thought, of perspective, to help the world break out of the mental mold that keeps us stuck, that keeps us repeating patterns and running in a hamster wheel that we don't want to be on, but we're scared to get off of. That's the next iteration of cultural role model. And that's a part of my pivot. It's not that I'm doing anything different. I've already been working with executives and entrepreneurs and leading new ways of thinking and sharing models of living and being and thinking that break molds. None of that is different, but the way that I'm being asked to show up is a little bit different. The way that I'm positioning my message to reach more people is a little bit different. The identity is a little bit different. From fashion to financial advisor to entrepreneur to mentor, coach to spiritual teacher. I did a whole rebrand around the Oracle, and after all of that, I was like, well, shit, even that's limiting. That's limiting. There's so many archetypes, and the identity really stepping forward now is thought leader. Not that it hasn't already been there, but it's a different energy. It's a different frequency, and therefore it moves through your body differently, so there's a slightly different embodiment. But the important part of this pivot and this identity shift within a pivot is it's not coming from the mind. It's coming from your shifted perspective and your shifted intentions. So it's coming through the body. It's an authentic expression. It's not another mask that you're putting on. It's taking the masks off. And this is really important right now because there's a reason people are resonating with this message. There's a reason a lot of people are going through major life transitions. For some people, it feels like a tower moment where things keep happening and it's like the world around you and within you is crumbling. Well, that's because you haven't been listening to your soul. That's because what you're living now is not in alignment with where your soul wants to go. And your ego may hate that and fight it, but you have to choose between your ego and your soul. Your ego is the one that outsources your power. Your soul is the one who harnesses your invisible power from within, where magic just happens. Another lesson from my pivots: do not make concrete decisions from chaos. There's moments in a pivot where you just don't have your bearings. You don't know where you are. You don't know which direction you're going. You just know that it's shifting and it's changing and you haven't yet landed in the new direction. That's a part of the process. So you have to get comfortable with a little bit of mess. And you have to just let the transition unfold and take steps as they come. Because if you try to put together a linear plan, like there's just only so far that will take you. And if you are a planner and you do like linear planning, great, do that, but be open and available to shift. If things aren't going according to plan, be willing to shift your plan. There's a level of malleability that is necessary to navigate a pivot and to land where your soul is really wanting to go, because your ego mind will not know. You won't know. You can't know. It's too biased. It has too many ideas. And some of them are brilliant and others are just trying to keep you safe. So don't make concrete decisions when you're in the mess of the chaos. Take baby steps as they arise and know that it's okay if you don't see the long game. It's okay if you only see a little bit ahead of you. That's all you need to see. You only need to see enough to take the next step, and then see enough to take the next step, and enough to take the next step. If you're waiting to see 10 steps ahead, good luck. You will never take a step, and then it's probably going to crumble beneath your feet because you're not choosing and you're not taking action. Last message about a pivot. Company cultures are really shifting. And working with both executives and leaders of big household name companies, we're starting to see a bigger and bigger discrepancy between personal values and corporate values, because corporate structures are old and outdated. Unless you're a newer conscious company, or you have conscious leaders consciously running a company, which are most of the new businesses and companies that are being born, that are really taking off. If you are still operating from an unconscious place as a company, or the leaders of a company, it's going to slap you in the face. And if when that unconsciousness, what you don't see, what you don't know, where you're operating from wounding, where you're leading from your ego, where you are leading from power over another, I'm in charge, so that's how it goes, lack of collaboration, CEO doesn't know what's going on because the executive team or managers are afraid to say something because they want to preserve their seat at the table. They don't know how to communicate. There's infidelity. There's the workers are disconnected from the broader vision. It's old school corporate culture is a mess. It's a mess, and it's unsustainable, and it will not last. At the same time, they're terrified of innovation. They want to innovate. They want to stay ahead of the curve. But they don't value intuition, which goes beyond logic. They don't value emotion or gut feeling because it doesn't follow the numbers. They're still stuck in this linear game of trying to survive rather than harnessing the internal power that they can utilize to be creative, to innovate, and thrive. So look at your career. Whether you are working for a company or have your own company, really look at the culture, look at the values, and look at if they're operating consciously. Consciously meaning from a grounded, open-hearted, open mind, connected place of collaboration, of mutual respect, of if a blind spot is brought to the table, we address it and shift it and make ourselves better. If the people that run a company are not making themselves better, then the company is not going to make itself better. It can't happen. The company is a result of leadership. It's an extension of the leadership. The company itself is an entity on its own, but a leader can't lead a company to thrive in this new age that is birthing if they're not doing it within themselves. So really look at your career and look at what company, what culture you're plugged into, and does that resonate with your values? If it doesn't, it's high time we start looking at some other options, because it just won't last. Over the past several months, I've worked with 2 different companies in 2 different capacities, And in both of these companies, and both of them are pretty conscious companies, or they market themselves as such. They might not use that languaging, but they're about doing good in the world, self-development, getting positive, uplifting messages and modalities and experiences into the world. And with both of these separate companies that I'm doing separate things with, I had experiences that were very unconscious, that were very out of integrity, where the actions did not match the advertising. The actions and the engagement did not align with how they were positioning themselves. It was out of integrity. And in both situations, I brought it to the executive team or somebody in that type of position of power, of leadership within the company, and they were handled very differently. And it's not about having an unconscious moment in a relationship, in a business dynamic, in yourself. It's not about having an unconscious moment or being out of integrity. It's about how you repair it once it's brought to your attention. And one of these companies, I felt like I was met with ego. It was dismissed. So I took it higher, and we're going to have a conversation. And the higher up was very open and receptive, and we're going to have a conversation to provide genuine feedback. And the other company handled it beautifully. And they're doing everything in their power to do what is right, to make right a very wrong situation that was very out of integrity and, quite frankly, very scary for me. It was very uncomfortable. And it's really important to look at this right now in your relationships, in business. How are people repairing a situation after there's been a rupture? It's not about, is there a rupture, or is there a mistake, or is there something out of integrity, or did something go wrong? That's not the point. Somebody could do something really, really wrong, because we all have unconscious moments, we all have wounding, we all have shit that happens, and how do we learn? We then see it. Then what? The people, the companies, the collaborators, the friends, the family that actively aim to repair it, not score keep, not try to protect their image, but genuinely, humbly aim to repair it, those are the people that can move forward with you in your life. Those are the people, the companies, the situations, the collaborators that can evolve with you, that can move with you into this next chapter as you pivot. Sometimes things happening right now that feel bad or wrong are really blessings. They're huge blessings because they're showing us who is aligned and who is not. So take it for what it is. It's not personal, it's vibrational. What was very aligned for a long time might not be aligned anymore, and that's okay. But we have to be willing to let it go and move forward so that what is aligned can click in, because it's all here, it's all waiting. It's like a huge chess game is being played right now in the unseen world. And we just have to lighten the load and have a little faith. Wow, I really heard my post-flu sickness voice here. I think my voice is getting raspy. Lastly, personal note, I am pretty majorly opening up the public speaking and keynote speaking arm of my business. It's been there, but I'm focusing a lot more on it now. So if any of this messaging resonates with you or your company, let me know, reach out, let's collaborate. I would love to bring value to your audience in a way that helps your company culture or your organization or association's culture to bring a new way of thinking and a new way of accessing your power, your intuitive intelligence, your integrated intelligence, to really navigate all of the change that's happening in the world and to innovate and create from a sovereign, powerful place. Because again, what worked before isn't working anymore, and we've got to do things differently. That is all. That's what I have to say about a pivot. Good luck in your pivot. I am sending you love. Reminder, we are doing a masterclass 2 days for free called Invisible Power. Your power lies where you're told not to look. Let's go there. We will be going there November 15th and 16th. There will be a replay for a short amount of time. I will be opening up some private, fun, new offers at the end of it. In a one-on-one session, a lot can happen in a short amount of time. Wherever you are in your pivot, wherever you are in your life, I will look at your mental, your emotional, your somatic, your intuitive, your gifts, your multi-dimensional self, and help you get on the path that your soul is calling you to be on, whatever is needed in the moment. Please comment what stood out the most to you, if this is resonating, if you're in a pivot. I love reading your comments. It's fun to see the engagement instead of just talking to a camera screen. So until I see you on the next stage that I'm presenting at, I will see you in the next video. Like and subscribe if you wish. It helps more people see this content, and I appreciate you being here. Happy pivot. Bye.